1972 was a very different place. The local economy was struggling, unemployment was higher than ever, and people and businesses were leaving the area as quickly as they could. New York at the time was dirty, dark, and falling apart. Melvin Combs himself lived in Harlem, where a widespread increase in arson, violent crime, and drug use had turned Harlem, a previously vibrant neighborhood, into a grim, shadowy underworld. Melvin returned from his service in the military at a time when benefits for veterans were practically non-existent, and living in Harlem, it was very difficult for him to make ends meet without dealing drugs. But he was good at that. Eventually, he even formed ties with Frank Lucas, the infamous New York drug lord whose life was later turned into a Hollywood movie. But on that night, as Melvin sat in the car, engine running in the cold darkness, a figure came out of the shadows and shot him dead. His killer was never found. Most murderers weren't in those days. Most people figured it wasn't a random accident. When Melvin had been arrested for trafficking drugs 2 years earlier, several of his associates had been raided and imprisoned shortly after. It led to a rumor that he had become an informant in exchange for immunity, because he was never arrested again. Detectives believe the 1972 murder of Melvin Combs might ultimately be traced to members of a heroin distributing conspiracy. In 1971, a heroin cutting mill and a conspirator's home were raided, shortly after Combs had been arrested for possession of heroin and $45,000 in cash. Essentially, it was entirely possible that there was a bounty on his head for selling his own people up the river, although nothing was ever proven for sure. Either way, what Melvin left behind on the day he died wasn't just a life of crime or a drug trafficking empire. He was a dedicated family man, married to a part-time model and a teacher named Janice, and together they had 2 young kids, a 1-year-old girl named Keisha and a 3-year-old son named Sean, both of whom would now be forced to live without the strong, grounding influence of a father in their life. After losing her husband, Janice Combs realized how much more difficult it would be to raise her kids in a healthy, caring way without a father, especially for their son Sean. She cared a lot about making sure that Sean didn't end up going down the same path as his dad, becoming a drug dealer, living the street life, or even worse. Doing whatever she could to protect him. For starters, she wouldn't tell him what happened to his father. Throughout his childhood, she told Sean that his dad was killed in a car accident, a cover-up that he wouldn't discover the truth behind for almost 2 decades. She then took on the massive financial burden to move them out of New York City. They went to the neighboring city of Mount Vernon, which, while not a lot safer or nicer than the dirty underworld of New York that had taken her husband's life, it was at least sort of a fresh start. Being a widow raising 2 kids by herself, Janice had to work 3 jobs at the same time to pay the bills, and they were still in poverty. A lot of the time she was so busy that she had no choice but to send the kids to stay with her sister, who lived in the Patterson housing projects in the South. Woke up and there were 15 roaches on my face, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna own something and be able to take care of my family. I don't want to live in these conditions anymore. And while that particular quote turned into more of a meme than anything, with Diddy only telling it once he had become a billionaire many years later, it's not unbelievable considering what the Bronx was really like at the time. He also said this: "It just kind of snapped on me. Don't take less in life and always fight back. To this day, whenever I get too comfortable, I remember the roaches. I remember living in a situation where babies weren't changed for 2 or 3 days and everything smelled and there was no food. That memory is what really fuels me to make sure that one day none of us have to live like that." Luckily for Sean Combs, as he grew up in the gritty, decaying streets of New York, the biggest deciding factor in the direction of his life was his mom's dedication to raising him right. Janice Combs raised her kids Catholic, getting them involved in the local community and putting them on the track towards education and discipline, making sure that Sean stayed away from the choices and lifestyle that killed his dad. They regularly went to church, and Sean even worked as an altar boy when he was a kid. Janice was even able to get Sean into a private school, Mount St. Michael Academy, an all-boys Catholic institution in Mount Vernon with numerous educational awards to its name. But despite her best intentions to protect her son from the evils of the drug trafficking and gang violence that killed her husband, there was an entirely different type of evil lurking beneath the surface at Sean's school, the very same place his mother had sent him so he would be safe. The internship at Uptown Records, for instance, came through a friendship with a New York rapper he met at a party that he hosted as a teenager. He started commuting between Howard University in DC and Uptown Records in New York so he could pursue both opportunities at the same time. He was tasked with helping develop the label's newly signed artists like Jodeci, Father MC, and Mary J. Blige. As an intern, his main responsibilities would be things like driving Mary J. Blige from her apartment to recording sessions in Manhattan, or organizing events for artists on the label, but it was quickly discovered that he had far more useful talents than running a guest list or driving an artist to the studio. The company quickly realized that he had such an ear for production, trend-making, curation, and relationships that he became an essential part of their operations practically overnight. Because the first record that Diddy ever produced ended up being a massive hit, but he wasn't even meant to be the producer. Originally intended to be produced by a professional, the producer never showed up to the studio, so Diddy sat down and made the record himself. That record ended up selling 2 million copies. And so within a year of working at Uptown, the label's founder, Andre Harrell, promoted Diddy to Director of Talent, one of the highest positions in the company, despite the fact he was barely 21 years old. Diddy wasn't just ambitious, he had the skills to prove what that ambition was worth, and he was quickly becoming very, very powerful. Even back when he was making a name for himself as an influential young tastemaker in R&B and hip-hop, producing a long list of hit songs for artists like Jodeci, Mary J. Blige, and more, there was a strange darkness starting to surround Diddy's career. On December 28, 1991, Diddy and Uptown Records artist Heavy D, at the time one of the top rappers in New York, were set to co-host a charity basketball game in the City College of New York Gymnasium, a small venue with a capacity for about 2,700 people. As a crowd gathered in the lobby, some people rushed down the stairs and through a set of swinging doors, thinking they would be able to get into the event that way, not realizing that the stairs didn't lead to the main event, but instead a utility stairwell. Over 3,000 people rushed forward without a clue, creating a crowd crush that would kill 9 people at the front of the crowd in under 15 minutes. The 9 people killed by the City College Stampede were high school and college students, all between the ages of 15 and 26. They were all from the surrounding neighborhoods. And while crowd crush events can be impossible to predict and control, and most of the time the fault lies with the security team, Diddy's reputation still took a hit, with many media outlets directly blaming him for the deaths of almost 10 kids. After all, the event had his name on it. Diddy even later claimed that he contemplated taking his own life after the accident, saying that he lost his mind from the pain and trauma. He stated publicly that he had been left alone in the gym with all the bodies, trying to resuscitate people to no avail. I knew I would have to explain what was going on and what happened. I was there with 9 bodies on the ground. Nobody else was there. No police, nobody. Just me and 9 bodies. In his words, it ruined his life. It was too much for me to handle. After the incident, it was like I was crazy, losing my mind, thinking about the people who died, thinking about the families, thinking about their pain. For a while, I was probably clinically insane. In reality, though, the other side of the story didn't quite go the same way. The real victims were the people who lost their kids, brothers, sisters, and friends. And those who later spoke out all pointed out that their own personal lives were over forever. They had no fame, wealth, or clout waiting for them on the other side, just the trauma of losing family members they could never replace. One person whose older brother was killed at the event said this in 2024. I believe in karma. He never really owned up to anything, and he never told us he was sorry. Whatever's going on with him now, I guess it was meant to be. But me, I lost everything that day. I lost my big brother, my best friend. He walked right past me after there was this big rush into the gym. He was with Devontae Adams from Jodeci, and he didn't seem concerned about what was going on. I never got the sense of remorse or accountability. Just, let me get my stuff and get out. But somehow, this story doesn't just end with callous indifference to people's lives. The concert had originally been organized as an AIDS outreach education event, and a portion of the ticket sales was to be donated to charity. Once all the dust settled from the tragedy, though, the money was nowhere to be found, and there had possibly never been any money set aside to begin with. A criminal investigation later discovered that while the majority of the blame for the disaster should fall on City College for failing to realize the potential for a huge crowd, some blame still fell on Diddy himself, which resulted in several lawsuits settled out of court in the years to follow. A judge named Louis Benza ruled that Diddy was lying about his attempts to save people in the gym, and it only questions his credibility even further. After the events of the City College Stampede, Diddy seemed a lot more like a sociopathic narcissist than a guy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time during a tragedy. It wasn't necessarily his fault that the accident had happened, but the way he acted afterwards, trying to take credit for things he didn't do, trying to paint himself as a victim when all he had done was separate himself from the real. Once he was working at Uptown Records, he became notorious for parties that he called Daddy's House, a attracting over 1,000 guests every week, from college students to local kids to celebrities, rappers, and athletes. He was becoming more than just an A&R, but instead a strangely alluring, larger-than-life figure in the industry. Because these parties weren't just about having fun. They were strategic networking events where Diddy could spot new talent, make connections, and build his reputation. However, they also had a darker side, with reports of excessive drug use, underage drinking, and questionable behavior even early on. And maybe the most conspicuous example of Diddy's character at the time was when a 14-year-old usher came to live with him for a year. In 1991, the same year as the deadly stampede, a then 14-year-old usher who just recently signed a record deal was sent by his label to live with a then 25-year-old Diddy in New York. From a business perspective, it made sense. Diddy was a powerful tastemaker with experience and connections. From the biography of Diddy by Susan Trout, Combs groomed stars in an intensely hands-on style. He reinvented their images by helping shape their music and choose their clothes. For better or worse, Combs sought to control every aspect of an artist's look, sound, and actions. He was taking on more and more responsibility because his ambitious nature made him crave more. So maybe Usher was a kid with lots of potential and Diddy wanted to help him grow. But from a personal perspective, that wasn't quite as clear. Why in the world would a 14-year-old boy be sent to live with a 25-year-old man he didn't know? Especially someone like Diddy, who was known for being a crazy party animal. L.A. Reid, the label exec who sent Usher to live with Diddy, said this: Usher was 14 years old, but nothing about him ever seemed juvenile. I was turning him over to the wildest party guy in the country at an age when I still needed his mother's permission. But he went to New York for almost a year. I didn't know whether I was being irresponsible or having an epiphany. Usher later went on to become a massive R&B star, in many ways with his career being pushed forward by people like Diddy.
Record companies are very satanic. When you come, it's like sharecropping, like your grandmother and grandfather on the plantation. You say, man, that's a hot song. I tell you what, I like it, and I'll front you for an album. So the record company puts up the money. You get in, they give you an advance, and they sign you, and you happy. You know, I just signed with Universal, or man, I signed with this one and that one. Yeah, right. But now they put up the money for the recording, for the advertising of your album, and they have their people in radio to play your music. Now, the advance that they give you, one of the first things you want to do is get some bling bling, so you can look like the other rappers who are very successful. The owner of the record company has a Jewish brother that's in the jewelry business. So he makes you a nice little bling bling, and you can buy a little car and ride in the neighborhood like a king. And then when it comes time to settle, how did I do? Well, I did pretty good, but they say I didn't bring in enough money on the album, so I owe them money. That's the same thing your great-grandmother did on the plantation. Yeah. Right? So now you got to go out on the road. They own the venues where you're playing. Oh, man, it's such a game that is being played. Well, how do you fix it? Some things you have to destroy. Yeah, and then some might see, in order to escape being destroyed.
About your tattoo, I find that very interesting.
My star?
Yes.
It's a cover-up.
What's on the cover? What was before
it
the
covered
cover?
up the goat's mask that sat at the top of my spine.
What is that?
It was a Baphomet.
And for the people that don't know what that is, can you explain what that is?
It is A symbol that you are protected by the devil and that you are one of the devil's own. No different than Black China had.
Right. And what made you get this tattoo?
Protection.
Right.
I just wanted them to leave me alone.
And by having this tattoo, you were protected at the time.
Left alone.
Left alone.
They want you to wear their symbols. People don't understand that all of these things have a much greater meaning. They want you to feel loyalty. They want you to show the rest of the world that you believe in what they believe in.
Right.
They tag us. Those who refuse to be tagged get persecuted. Those who choose to go along with it, go along with it and pretend like it doesn't exist.
So, can I ask you, what was your moment of clarity to even want to cover it up? Like, what was that moment of clarity for you to say, no
My
longer?
son's dead body. There is no protection.
Are there any other tattoos that we normally look at and be like, oh, that's cool, but it really has a deeper meaning?
A lot. You have to pay attention to the house they're coming from. You have to pay attention to the way the tags are set up. It was the mask and horns, and then he added the smoke to try to make it look like it was more cartoonish or whatever, but it was what it was. You start etching these things into your skin and your DNA, it becomes a part of you. There is a spiritual aspect to all of this that people aren't recognizing. You know, there's a reason why everyone's wearing so much red these days. There's a reason why all of these checkered themes are coming. These are all Masonic totems and emblems.
How Diddy mom came out defending him, she made a comment saying that Diddy is not a monster.
Yeah, he not a monster. She is. But I don't want to go there. But she is. She's the fucking monster. Everything in her fucking name. She's the monster. She created that, and y'all gonna see on that Netflix friendship. So you don't get the real of him. This DVD gets to the mama. The fucking satanic behind all this shit. It's her. She just ain't no, she the devil, bro. That's how I see it. She the devil. Janice Combs is the fucking devil. That bitch got everybody money. Yeah, man, I don't give a fuck what she talk about. Yeah, you go out there and tell me. Seeing her defend Diddy, like, sit your ass down. You the worst person. You the wrong one to talk. You got somebody that you, like, that's like R. Kelly coming to talk it up for you. Like, nigga, shut up. We don't need you. Oh, Diddy innocent. Let's shut up, Kelly. Not right now. That's her. Shut your ass up. You the reason a man like he.
My name is Ronnie Bowe. I had a career in music until I got incarcerated back in 2010. June of 2019, I had to turn myself in because I produced a rap song entitled Whack the Rats. And I actually mentioned a real federal informant in the song. So the government basically issued a U.S. Marshal warrant out for me. I turned myself in to MCC Chicago. R. Kelly got indicted, and he ended up in MCC Chicago with me. I wanted to write a book on the behalf of R. Kelly to get his side of the story. They moved me to Unit 19 where R. Kelly was at. So he basically admitted that he sold it. He wanted out. According to R. Kelly, the top executives in the music industry actually really practice evil things. So you technically have to like sign your name and do some like certain for them to trust you. I mean, they, like, for example, a tape came out about R. Kelly that was actually a humiliation. For example, Diddy has certain chemicals in his baby oil. Like, you can rub this on somebody and they can become bodies, and sometimes they might put something in your drink and you're not in your right. And then they have certain people seduce you. He was seduced, so he didn't know what he was doing, but it was recorded. So the way that these executives work, they will have you do something like this, whether you're aware of what you're doing or not, and record it and say, well, if you don't comply with this agenda, then we will expose you to the public and ruin your life. We can lock you up. We can bring all type of lawsuits on you. We can take your catalog and basically ruin your whole life and your whole career. However, if you comply with us in this agenda, then we'll make sure you stay successful and at the top of your game. And despite what people believe about R. Kelly, but he tried to be a stand-up guy and he didn't want to comply with certain things. Certain people like Jay-Z are in total compliance with these people. Like Diddy was in compliance with him.
In a recent interview, ex-prisoner and rapper Ronnie Bo claimed that during his time in prison with R. Kelly, the singer allegedly shared his struggles with the music industry. According to Bo, R. Kelly said he felt trapped by the pressures of fame and even suggested he sold his to achieve success. Bo also claimed that R. Kelly hinted at his regret in his music video for I Wish, where he portrayed a skit involving a conversation with his deceased mother. In this skit, his character expresses a desire to escape the pressures of the industry, with his mother replying with the Bible verse, "What worth is it for a man to conquer the whole world, but lose his own soul?"
Want out.
While R. Kelly's legal issues are well documented, this conversation also ties into broader concerns about the music industry. Recently, P. Diddy has been facing multiple accusations, with over 100 individuals coming forward, including many minors, accusing him of serious offenses. These allegations highlight troubling aspects of the entertainment industry, raising questions about the influence of powerful figures. As legal proceedings unfold, it's important to pay attention to the developments in these cases. More revelations are expected in the coming months, which could uncover deeper issues within the industry.
Thing is in your mother's name. That's the one who got the receipts, nigga. You need more proof, nigga? Biggie ain't here, so Big can't give you no receipts. He dead. Craig Mack can't give you receipts. He dead. What are you talking about? Who else? Black Rob can't give you receipts. He dead. And everybody else you made sign paperwork so they can't talk about what I'm talking about. I'm the only one with the guts. You're not signing it, nigga, because I ain't need the money. All money ain't good money. Remember that. Remember that. Remember that, nigga. You know who to play with.
Been to a P. Diddy party?
Yeah, except many, honestly.
And so, can you take us through, like, what goes on, like, when you were there?
Money and sex.
Were you surprised that there were so many cameras in his houses?
No!
So let me ask you, when you hear that Cassie was told to hire male escorts to come in what they call freak-offs now,
yeah.
Is that something normal that happens in Hollywood?
Yeah.
Freak-offs.
Yeah. Everybody know that. I've been saying it.
So why does Puffy, why now? Why?
Because he's the acceptable monster at this time. Like R. Kelly was the last time I sat on this couch.
So who's next?
Y'all don't see the lineup? Jay-Z is setting Diddy up. He lined up D. Haven, stole his life and identity. He lined up Big L, stole his life and identity. He lined up Dame Dash, stole his life, identity, and fucking took his love. Lined up R. Kelly. He wants to be the one.
Life-size wheels that people attach children to and spin it and decide who's having in what way. There are so many things. There's body cakes, there's party favors, and I'm talking like, you know how you put up a little birthday bag, like when you go to a birthday party, and before you can leave, you can take one of those little birthday bags off the table, and then there's toys and like all this stuff for coming to the party. Yeah, instead of that, there's children. They call them party favors. How do you think the kids are doing? You hear the adults saying that they were on liquid IVs after the parties. You hear how many toys they pulled out of his house. I told y'all how many times that the Playboy is connected to houses. The tunnels connect to homes that connect to really big places, especially the Playboy. A lot of you guys are starting to hear that now.
Will be exposed.
I mean, when I walk in, I definitely take pride in being the originator of the preparation of the sex. Little things that I personally like.
A lot of ladies, just, so you have, if you don't have what they need, they're gonna leave.
Right.
Gotta keep them there.
Right. You need locks on the doors.
P. Diddy be wanting the body, and you gotta tell him no. You got to tell him no. All of these big deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is.
People who attended P. Diddy's party will leave you in shock. Jay-Z, Beyonce, Jennifer Lopez, Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, Leonardo DiCaprio, Usher, Rihanna, Mariah Carey, Justin Bieber, Drake, Snoop Dogg, David Beckham, Victoria Beckham, Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith, Chris Brown, Hickey Haas, Nicki Minaj, Tyler the Creator, Post Malone, Travis Scott, Jamie Foxx, Oprah Winfrey, Quincy Jones, DJ Khaled, Lenny Kravitz, Madonna, Cardi B, Kris Jenner, Lupita Nyong'o, Sean Penn, Tyrese Gibson, Adele, Steve Harvey, Chris Rock, Nas, Shakira. It was even rumored that 50 Cent only attended one party, and there are also many people we won't mention because there is no reliable information on whether they actually attended the
Take your souls. We have the power. We decide what's hot. If we don't go, nobody goes. If we don't support, nobody supports. We control what's cool. We control what's hot. We control what your kids listen to, what they dance to. We control what's in video games. We control how they wear their pants, sag their pants. We control.
Psychological warfare is defined as actions intended to reduce an opponent's morale or mental well-being. This type of attacks is usually carried out through propaganda and news, your entertainment, your television, social media, and through your music that are false, exaggerated to deliberately influence the masses. For example, look at the imagery of the feminization of indigenous black men. As you see through the entertainment, they have men in dresses. They got the indigenous black men in dresses and wigs. Look at the images. Calibrate your moral compass, then you have to ensure you're in the right polarity. For an example, you can put up a chart, negative and positive, 5 things. You can put down today 5 things that you said positive. And a negative, you say 5 negative things that you did today. So whatever side outweighs the other, if you have more negative than positive, then you are in a negative polarity. Or if you have more positive than negative, you're in a positive polarity. Understand this. This is how you're going to align your polarity very quickly. And understanding in this social engineering that things that people entertain themselves with has direct influences on themselves, on the psyche. For an example, let's say if you listen to rap music, choose your favorite rap artist. Do 5 things. If your rap artist is rapping about these 5 things, then you can see they're in a negative polarity. One would be saying the jiggers with the N. Number 2, drugs. Number 3, crime. Number 4, objectifying indigenous black women. And number 5, glamorizing jail. If you listen to the repetitively of being disrespectful, calling your names, indulging or influencing in drugs, committing criminal activities, objectifying your own women, no respect for your women or family, and glamorizing jail, what do you think the mind is set upon? On destructive behaviors. Now, if you present this to the same rappers, these 5 things, to say you take these out your lyrics, now what do you have to rap about? And a lot of those careers will be over because they're not uplifting the people. They're holding them down. They're not liberating or educating. They're incarcerating and have you participating in criminal activities. Understand this. So when you want to take accountability for your circle and your outcome, then you must correct the things within. Understand this. And I know for a lot of indigenous black women that's raising these indigenous black men, the only thing she can do is show him how to act like a man, but it will take a man to show him how to become a man. So we need the men to step up, be accountable for some of the people in your communities and your families. It takes a village to raise a nation. So for us to come together as a people, we need more participation as a people. In conclusion, family, I know the struggle is real, especially for the single parent mothers out there, for all this. We asking for the rest of the village and the community to help out, recalibrate our young people, our legacy, put them on the right path. And we collectively as a people need to be looking over us as a people. Understand this. And so if you want to correct your life or correct your error, then you need to have a 180-degree corrective change today. And your outcome tomorrow may be different. But you got to make the change today, family. Also here at theblackawake.com, if you need any assistance or resources or help, we got people that we can direct you to as well. Drop me a DM.
So I'm going to leave you in the manner in which I came, with a universal prayer. In the name of the universal creator of heaven and earth and everything in between, please continue to bless my listeners, their family, their friends, and the true believers for when the day of reckoning takes place. For universal creator, you are all wise and all knowing, and unto you we all shall return. But until then, we give you the praise and glory that's due to you from this life into the earth. In the name of the universal creator of heaven and earth and everything in between, in your name we pray that this shall be done.